The Tim Heal Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.
Welcome to the Tim Hill Podcast and Ordinary People's Extraordinary Stories. Today, I've got a great guy on, so without too much further ado, let's bring him on. Kyle, welcome.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I already woke up this
Brilliant.
morning, did my burpees, got ready. It's early over here. It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah.
So I've already had half the day. So, Kyle, if you can tell me when and where you were born, if you can describe to me what it was like where you grew up, the schools you went to, and the education that you received. So you've got the platform.
So I grew up in a place called Mansfield, Ohio. It's like a city, but not a huge city. It's in between Cleveland and Columbus, if anyone knows where they're at. Those are two bigger cities. So I grew up there at first, and then my parents moved me into the country to try to keep me out of trouble, just because of how bad this city was. It didn't really work. I didn't really get along with a lot of the people once I moved into the country because I was still like a city person, so a lot of people didn't really relate to me. And the school I went from to the school I went to, it maybe had a graduating class of like 50 people, so it was pretty small. And the reason my parents moved me out there is they wanted to try to keep me out of trouble because my brother, before he got pretty successful with his tree service, he makes a lot of money now, but he was a two-time felon. So their ideology was, oh, if I move him away, maybe he won't get in trouble. But then I was so secluded, and they tried to keep me out of trouble and keep me in the house so much that like when I turned 18, I just went rampant for a while. And then I ended up going to the Marine Corps. So that's kind of the background story of my environment. And I always tell people you're not a product of your environment, you're a product of your mindset. Because if you Google the city I live in, it's one of the worst crime rates per size in all of America. But it's all about your mindset and not the environment.
Wow. So pretty tough upbringing then.
Yeah, it wasn't amazing, but I don't I it was everyone talks about how their life is affected by their childhood, but I think they just harp on it too much.
Yeah, I mean, childhood does have a certain degree of how you turn out. But you're right, where it is mindset. It's quite easily to get into bad habits. It's quite easy to fall into the wrong crowd. But it takes a little bit of sort of thinking about to keep yourself on the straight and narrow. So, Ohio, it's a big old state, isn't it? So, the town that you first grew up in, what was that like? What was the street like you lived on? What was the house like you lived in, or did you live in an apartment? What was that like?
It was a smaller home. So my family came up here. A lot of people where I lived, it was called Little Kentucky, which is the state underneath Ohio. A lot of people migrated up here from Kentucky because of the steel mill of the railroad. So it's like a really blue collar type of area, really old school workers that moved up here for a better opportunity at the time. So it was like smaller houses on on just like a strip of roads, and like every house looked the same. And it was kind of like a bunch of country people that moved into the city, and that's why it was called Little Kentucky. So that's kind of the area I was first born in.
Hmm. And did you go to kindergarten there?
Yeah, I went to kindergarten and first grade there, and then I moved into the country.
Okay. Can you remember much about your kindergarten?
I just remember it
Was
being a huge like cultural shift going from Mansfield to Jeromesville. Like there's a lot more people involved. Obviously, the attitudes from a city person to a country living is way different. So, like the cultural shift from kindergarten to first grade to second grade was a huge mindset shift.
hmm. So, so how many kids was in your kindergarten? Can you remember? Was it a big class? Did you have to get on the big yellow bus to get there?
Yeah, I don't. It wasn't huge. Maybe like 100 people. Because even though I lived in the city, it's still a smaller city compared to like a really big city.
Hmm.
The bigger cities around me maybe have 1 million people per city, and my city has like 55,000.
All right, it's quite small then.
Yeah,
So, so your first grade, how was that? That was just
that's
a sort
where.
of that's the basics, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the basics, kind of where you start to function through life and try to start to figure out who you are. It's where your personality is. My daughter, she's about to go into first grade, and my other daughter's in fourth grade. But like when they're in first grade, is where you find your personality. You start to actually kind of become a person.
Yeah. So moving to the countryside then, what was the house like you lived in, and what was the area like?
So we didn't really have any neighbors. We had a neighbor maybe every like half a mile. And back then, there was no real good internet. So you were kind of just stuck with whoever you lived with. They had like dial-up internet, but it was so slow, and that's the one that would like make all the loud noises before you'd get on, and it would take 15 minutes to load a web page.
God,
So
remember those days? Cool.
yeah, it was like now we're talking on a cell phone. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, so you're kind of secluded for the most part until you go somewhere, and then you don't really have any way to communicate with anyone. So like to hang out with someone, you would have to hopefully they're home, maybe not, and you would try it, and they're not home, so then you're just kind of stuck with yourself again.
Hmm. So the did you have to get a bus? Did the bus come past the bottom of your road every day to pick you up to take to school?
Yeah, it was like it was a since it's in the middle of the country and it's such a far distance between each person. My bus ride every morning was like an hour and a half long.
Oh,
Yeah,
that'd almost break you. So you had to
yeah, it was.
start really early then just to get to school.
Yeah, because yeah, and then especially when I went to a trade school, so you would get to your normal school first, and then they would take you to your trade school. So it would be like 5 o'clock in the morning to get up to get on the bus at like 5:30 to get to school at like 7.
So your first school then, I guess that's the elementary. So you spend an hour and a half on the bus just to get to your elementary school. What was the school like itself?
It was like an older school that had like no AC. It was like a brick building. Nothing special. They're actually redoing the schools now and combining them all. The school levies they failed for like 20 years in a row. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the same over there for you, but here, if a school district wants a new school, it gets paid for by the taxes. So the people that live in that city, they have to vote on it. They voted it down for like 20 years, but the same people that voted it down would be the ones complaining about the kids and how this they had to go to like a older school. So it's backwards.
Yeah. So they clearly didn't learn anything when I was at school then to
And they
put things
actually
right.
never approved it. A pipeline came through and wanted to start doing work, and they, to get the land, they paid for the school. So like the levies never passed ever. It's just so happened they got lucky enough that a business wanted to come through and revamp the land, anyways.
Hmm. So moving on slightly then, as you progress through your elementary school, what were your favourite lessons?
I've always been really big into math. Even when I went into the Marine Corps, I did accounting for majority of it, besides like small like billets that I held, or like when I went to travel or when I went to the field. But I really like anything that is challenging. I feel like math is challenging because you actually have to sit down, learn the fundamentals, then practically apply it. If you don't listen and pay attention, there's no way you're going to pass the class because it starts to get super developed super fast.
Hmm. And what about sports? I mean, were you into sports at all back then?
So I never really played a lot of recreational sports in school. I boxed for a while, like outside of school. I've always been like a more of an aggressive person than I weightlifted. I've always been a big weightlifter. Even when I gained on my weight from drinking, my excuse was I was bulking. So I've always been really big into weightlifting. I think I started like really involved in it when I was like 15. So every
So what
day after
about
school, I'd hit the weight room for like an hour and a half. Me and my friends that were into weightlifting, we would run a lot. So I never was like big into sports because I didn't want it to take away from my weightlifting attributes.
hmm. So weightlifting? When did you actually start at? When did you get into the weightlifting?
I would say my first like ordeal with it, I was like 14, 15 years old, and then I talked my parents into buying me a weight bench for my bedroom. And after that, I just like fully engulfed myself. I would like play like I was talking about the dial-up internet when I was waiting for things to load. I would drop down do like 15, 20 push-ups. Because before I got into weightlifting, my parents are from the South, and my whole family we ate a lot of fried food, a lot of like biscuits and gravy. So I was a pretty big kid when I was younger, and then I realized like I wanted to get back into or wanted to get into fitness, and I started doing push-ups, started getting into fitness, and then I got into weightlifting, and then weightlifting is a form of it's almost an addiction because if you miss, you feel weird.
So being a big kid, they didn't put you on a football team then?
No,
Didn't
I
put it
played
on
football
the.
for like a year. I wasn't really into it like that. I don't. I was just really more into like the weightlifting, and then I'm still like that now. Like my friends would try to get me to do something like extreme. I'm like, I don't want to get hurt because then I can't go to the gym. 'Cause without the gym, I
Sure,
would go
surely if
crazy.
you've got a really good muscle tone, then less likelihood of getting an injury. I mean, that's what I found. I played rugby most of my
Mhm.
life. I gave up when I was 56 was the last game I played, and gobby little scrum half. I mean, the problem was I was slowing down. I don't know whether I was slowing down or people were just getting quicker, but I was getting scragged more often, and the number eight never used to look after me. I think I upset him once, so he'd let him get me. Um, yeah, so and occasionally you pick up a knock and injury and stuff, but where you're physically fit, your muscle tone's good. You sort of less injuries from that. So lots and lots of weight training as you're going through. So what was your middle school like? Were you still
It was
having to
about the
travel big distances to school?
Yeah, it was about the same thing. It was like 2 or 3 miles down the road. So they're all the schools were really close together, and it was about the exact same experience. It looked like the same building, just with a different building number on it.
So what was your least favourite subject?
Let me see. I would
What
say
one didn't you
history.
want to get up for in the morning?
I would say history, which is weird because then I ended up going to the military. But um, I just feel like like most of the history teacher I had, they didn't really put any excitement behind it. So like they would just like read from the textbook. You would have to read all the history, and it was just there was nothing exciting about the class really.
Yeah, and I guess unless you get a decent field trip to say Gettysburg or something like that to see where it all happened and have it explained where the Confederates were, where the Loyalists were, and all the rest of it. You kind of uh, yeah. If you're just looking at a blank or a textbook, not a lot of fun in history, but living history is a lot more fun. Going out
Yeah.
and seeing it. So, what was your favourite subject other than maths?
My favorite subject. I really like when I took a Spanish class and the Spanish teacher he made it such a like an involving class. It was literally the opposite of history. So like he would give us nicknames and he would have us do certain task every day, and it was just a way more involved class. And just being able to learn something that you're not used to seeing all the time or hearing all the time, I really liked it. I never really took it serious after school, but I liked it when I was in school. That was probably my
Hmm.
favorite.
Can you still speak a bit of Spanish?
No, I don't remember any of it.
Por favor.
I
Dos,
hear a
dos
lot of it.
cefaita.
I used to hear Spanish a lot when I had a normal job because I worked for a German company, but we also had a Mexico plant. And we also had a Chinese plant, so I would hear a bunch of different languages, but I can't speak it.
Hmm. So moving on then, high school. What was your high school like? Were you still in
But
the
that's
same
where
area?
yeah, it's like another maybe like that one's a little bit further. That's the furthest one from my house, so that was the longest bus ride. That's where I really got involved in weightlifting, and I kind of started branching out and becoming more social with people and just I would start. working out after school. On the weekends, I'd go do more things outside of just hanging out with my normal group of people. Because once you get into like fitness or things like that, you kind of start to do more aggressive lifestyles, start to hang out with more people, and you just kind of branch off into a real person. Like start to involve in yourself and start to develop into an adult when you're in high school. So
Mm. So did you get into much trouble at school?
yeah, I got in trouble all the time. Uh, I wasn't I don't really even know how I ended up going to the military because I never liked authorities. So I was always in trouble. There was this one class I would go into the class, and literally she would put me in the hallway before the class. Before I would even say anything. She's like, "Kyle, I don't feel like dealing with you today. Just go to the hallway." I didn't even do anything yet. Like that's how. So
That's how bad it was.
yeah. And I
Crazy.
actually had another teacher. His last name was Matthew, and he was a math teacher. And I liked math, but we would always make fun of each other. And he would start talking crazy to me, and I'm like, dude, your last name is Math. You were born to be a nerd. And he was just so annoyed. He was so annoyed with me by the end of the year.
So did you actually manage to graduate from high
I
school?
did. I did graduate, which is crazy because my last year as a senior, I lived on my own. Um, Me and my mom have never really got along our whole lives, and my last year, I was born in October, and the way the school systems work, if you're born so late into the year, you join at a later age almost, so you're a year ahead of like age wise by the time you graduate. So I was 18 my whole senior year, so I was
Mm.
my whole senior year and half of my or junior year, I was living on my own with my buddy in an apartment. And all we was doing was like hanging out, partying, just doing what young kids do. And I still graduated. We went to school. We got up every day. Same kind of mindset of the Marine Corps almost. Like we would party until like 3 in the morning, and get up and go to
Yeah.
school.
So I guess you didn't quite graduate with honours then.
No, I maybe had like I had average grades. I mean, I was smart enough to like just sit in and listen to the class, not really do my homework, and pass the test. So that's kind of how I got by in high school.
Mm. So senior year, did you get your prom? Did you go to prom? Did you have a date to go to prom?
I didn't. I had a girlfriend. I dated the same girl for a long time when I was in high school, but I was never really into. I went to homecoming, which is like the first 2 years of high school, but I didn't go to prom.
All right. So you dipped out then.
Yeah, we just did. I don't remember what we did. I think we probably went to a party or something.
So what did you do once you graduated high school?
So I kind of fumbled through life for a while, got in trouble. I just had a normal job. I went to jail twice, nothing crazy, just fumbling through, just acting like a young, dumb kid. Um, and then from 18 to 21, I just kind of worked. I mean, I had a decent job as a job that most people liked in the area. It was like a respected job, but it wasn't something I ever wanted to do for the rest of my life. Because you would walk around, you'd see all these like grumpy people, like close to retirement, talking about how they hated their life and like they've had six, seven shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries from standing on concrete their whole life. And I was like, I got to find something else, man. And I just remember standing there one day and they were about to move me shifts. It's very normal in the American culture. Like if they have a need on another shift and you're newer, they'll just move you. So you could be
Mm.
living a first shift lifestyle, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're moving a second Monday." And they did that to me, and I'm like, "Oh, by the way, I quit." And then I went and walked into the Marine Corps office, and I joined the Marines that day.
So although you've been in trouble a couple of times, been in jail a couple of times, the Marine Corps still took you.
Yeah, so the it's the hardest one to join as far as how strict it is if you have a troubled past. They won't do anything with like drug related incidences. My incidences were alcohol related. I had an underage from drinking before I turned 21, and I had a petty theft where I was with someone that stole something from a store, but because I was with him and I got the charge too, and I didn't have any money to fight the case, so I just pled guilty. They gave me like a couple of days in jail and a year probation for that.
Mm. So joining the Marine Corps then, where did you do your training?
So I went to North Carolina and Camp Lejeune. And they got these things
Ah.
called sand fleas, and when you're there, they make you stop in the sand, and all these fleas start eating your skin. It's not. But there's
That's
another
a lot
side
of
of
fun.
yeah, the other side of America that is California, which is like nothing but hills. And I remember the California Marines making fun of us, saying that our boot camp was easy. But it showed in like real life because when you would PT with a Marine that went to California for boot camp, because of how many hills, like the hills are literally like this, like they're like
Yeah.
crazy. They were in so much better shape automatically just because of running those hills for not for 3 months.
So, how was your boot camp? Was it Superfly?
It was pretty tough. I mean, especially the Marine Corps. It's like the most extreme branch that you can go to. You don't get a cell phone the whole time. You just write letters. You don't get a cell phone till then. It's 3 months versus 2 months, like most boot camps, like the Army
Mm.
or the
Yeah.
Navy or stuff like that. So it's more of extreme. And the thing is, like, so I was a backup shipper. So when I was getting ready to go, I was sick of getting in trouble, and I knew if I waited around because I was infantry at first, and I waited around for like 7 months, and I texted my recruiter like, I need to leave, bro. Like I can't. This city is getting me in trouble still. Like I had a couple close calls. He's like, you're gonna have to sign a new contract because we're still like 7 months out from sending infantry people out because there's no time of war anymore really. So to do infantry or anything like that, there's really no like extreme need for it. So he
Mm.
came to my house, had me sign a new contract, and then I was literally gone within like a week after that contract. I was like, send me as a backup shipper. Anytime someone fails up there, I'll just go. He called me. It was like 8 in the morning. He's like, hey man, someone couldn't do their pull ups. You want to leave? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Just send me. And then I was on a plane within like 6 hours. And then so I had to call
Wow.
my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. Like, hey, I gotta go. And then I just got on a plane. So most people go with a group and then they get to the airport with a group, but
Yeah.
that group left the day before me because that guy had failed. So I did all that by myself instead of with a group.
All right. So you actually came in sort of day two, effectively,
Yep.
of that intake. So a guy couldn't do his pull ups. They binned him, dragged you in, and you had to start making friends from day two rather than day one. How did that affect you? How did that affect them?
It didn't really feel like a. I mean, it was weird by myself when I was walking in everywhere and getting checked in, and then when I first got onto the plane, and then because like it's weird, they're at the airport waiting for you, and then they take you on a bus. So like I walked in by myself, and then got put in with the group of people. So it wasn't like extreme, like an
Mm.
extreme case where like I was an outlier or an outcast because it was kind of normal. Because then you don't get dropped into your actual platoon until like a day later.
Yeah. So what was the training like initially? What was the first week? I mean, it was all showing you how to do this, how to look after your kit, getting issued your kit, I guess. And were you in a massive, great big room with a lot of guys, or
Yeah, I would
or
say it was
obviously you didn't
around.
have your own ensuite?
There's around 60 people per like uh, per bay really. So the platoons aren't huge. I mean that's decently sized. And the first week, your throat is like bleeding from screaming constantly, and it's like you got a constant headache because you're always screaming. So you're
So
kind of
yes,
like in like a state of just like you're existing, but you really don't know what's going on because you're just like getting pointed in all these directions, trying to get all your stuff. And like before that, a week before that, you were sitting on your couch just hanging out with normal people.
hmm. So going through your training, then what was the toughest part of it? What did you
I
find
think
really difficult?
I think the toughest part is just mentally making it through there for 9 months or for 3 months because like the whole time, no matter how good you're doing, you feel like at any point in time you could fail. Because if you ever watch someone fail and then you know they're getting put back to day one if they want to make it through the Marine Corps, they could be 2.5 months in and do something crazy that jeopardized it, and they push them back to training day one. Like just just being
Harsh.
thinking like, oh, I could go back to day one. This sounds horrible. Then be stuck there for another 3 months. It's like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I mean, did you get back squadded at all?
What was that?
Did you get back squadded at all?
Oh yeah, I got my wisdom teeth taken out, and I remember I said something smart to my drill instructor, and he smacked me with a Bible. And I remember him saying, "I am God around here."
So did you stay with the same platoon all the way through?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
So
think we only had like 3 or 4 people drop, and most of them were like medical cases, like they broke something, or I think only one person quit.
that's not bad going. Says it's not that tough.
Yeah, we had a really good turnaround rate. I, I I've seen a lot of platoons they like half size by the end of it, but I mean we had a pretty lucky crew. No one really got hurt or injured, and so
Mm.
we all kind of stuck together.
Yeah. Obviously didn't try hard enough. I
Yeah.
started off when my initial training. We turned up with there was 120. We passed out with 25.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
it was brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
I've seen platoons like that. It's just like the luck of the draw. If you get with a bunch like a lot of people that are really in shape
Yeah,
already, have like just good genetic. I guess a lot of it's genetics. And if you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get hurt.
yeah. I mean, it's easy to get hurt. It's easy to get broken.
Yeah.
So what happened at the end of 3 months? You passed off, passed out. What did you do next?
So they send you home to see your family for a week, and then you go back to another 2 to 3 month training at MCT, which is like your rifle training, because the motto of the Marine Corps is like every Marine's a rifleman. So you go through like a month-long training for that, and then once you graduate there, you go to this place called the schoolhouse, which is your MOS, and you sit in a holding platoon, which you really don't do like much. You go to the schoolhouse, but you
Yeah,
don't learn anything because you're waiting to get picked up for your class. So there's like 3 months of you just like kind of like hanging out in the dorm room almost with the people that you're gonna go to your school with, but you got to wait until the class before you's done. So you just kind of wait around. You're still in the structure environment, like you can't
yeah,
stay out past midnight on the weekends. On the weekdays, you have to be in by 9, and every day you have to check in with your squad. You have to check in midday, and then you have to check in at night. So there's a count all the time. You have to do fire watch a lot, which you just kind of walk around the building and you observe the building. So you're stuck in another training phase. So like from the time you join the Marine Corps to like your year one, you're in nothing but training pretty much.
mm. So what did you specialise in? What obviously you didn't go infantry because they didn't need them at that time. So what was your speciality?
So it was like low level accounting. I did payroll, travel claims, things of that nature, which I'm really grateful for now that I look back on it because it set me up for my career that I ended up taking that then funded my business, and now I don't even I just do my business full time. So looking back on it, you make fun of yourself because you didn't do the most extreme one, but it
Mm.
really helped my career excel a lot because I got a lot of certifications while I was in there. I got a financial management certification, which held the same weight as an associate's degree of 2 years, and then I used that to like get into the career that I went to after the Marine Corps.
Aha. So you it effectively was like a pay clerk.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we went PT every morning, and it was like 5:30 in the morning. You would do that for an hour and a half. They gave you the opportunity to shower, grab breakfast, and then you would work a normal job almost, which is like the
Yeah.
extreme mindset of the military, where you're still getting like screamed at and like doing playing games. So that would be from like 6, 7 in the morning to like 4:35 in the afternoon, sometimes 6. Like the normal days are like 12 hours, longer days are like 15 to 16. And then once a month, you have this thing called duty, which is 24 hours of you watching the base.
Yeah.
It really ends up being 36 because they make you go back to work for like a couple more hours. You would do that about once a month. So yeah, I was. If you looked at it from the grand scheme of things, it was 9 to 5 with PT inside of it. So kind of
Mm.
like a basic job that normal people would do. I did like payroll claims, like travel claims, paid people. Worked in a section called reports, which is like I would do all the failed transactions from the day prior, and you just get there by having enough experience to move into that section.
Mm. So where did you get posted to once you sort of completed all that bit of training?
I was in North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a pretty nice area compared to where I'm from. You get a beach that's like 5-10 minutes. Like all the bases are near beaches, obviously, just for like because we're really the Marine
Yeah,
Corps is really close to the Navy because we're a department of the Navy.
yeah. So did he get to go and see the Jaguars at all?
What was that?
Did he get to see the Jaguars at all? Did they get you free passes to get into the football games?
No, actually. Yeah, they had this thing called the Single Marine Corps program, but I never really took part in it. I wish I would have now I look back on it because they were sending us on like free cruises but like when you're in, like, I don't know, like people make it sound like those types of things are goofy or you shouldn't do them. But like now that I look back on it and the type of person I am now, I was like, I wish I would have did all those because it was free. Like, why wouldn't I have taken a free cruise to go to the Bahamas just because someone told me not to?
Yeah. So how long did you do in the Marines?
I did 4 years, so the contracts are normally 4 to 6 years. I did my 4 year contract, and then I came back home.
Hmm. So did you get an overseas posting at all in that time, or you just stuck in North Carolina?
So they love to do this thing to you where right before you get out, they finally give you a deployment. So I was getting ready to go to Norway, and they're like, "Hey, you have to extend for 2 months." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that." But I already had a job lined up, so I called my job. I'm like, "Hey, I got to extend for 2 months." Is that okay? Well, I still have a job when I get home. And they're like, yeah. Well, so I go on leave to see my family because I know I was about to be gone for like 9 to 12 months. And they call me while I'm there and they're like, hey, something happened. The deployment's going to be longer. We need you to extend for um, a year, a year to 18 months. And I'm like, dude, I can't do that. I have a job lined up. So when I went back to post, I told them like, I can't go. I'm not going. I can't extend. And then obviously they treat you really bad after you tell them no. So I kind of got a target on my back for like the last 2 or 3 months that I had, but I didn't want to ruin my life career because I knew I didn't want to stay in. So there was no point for me
Mm,
to extend for that long. Because by that time, once you extend for a year, they do well, you're already extended for a year. You might as well just do another contract. And that's how they get people to stay in because most people don't want to stay in because the pay's low and you don't get treated very well. So they
mm,
do hey, extend for a couple months. We'll give you this deployment. And then now they got you hook, line, and sinker for another 4 years.
mm.
Which they did it to a lot of
So,
my buddies, and now my buddies are finally getting out. So
all right, that's quite a while ago. So you turned down Norway. You got out. What did you do? What was the job you went to?
when I first got out, my area is kind of hard to find a job. So I worked at a basic like CNC shop where we made metals for companies, and I worked that job until I found something that related to my background. So once I found something that related to my background, it was Medicaid and food stamps for government assistance programs. So that's what I went and did. I went and worked for the state so I can get state funding and state benefits again. I did that for around 9 months while I was still applying for jobs. And then I found this company that did phosphates and lubrications. And I ended up working my way up in that company and becoming one of the youngest plant managers on paper for a chemical plant. At 26 years old, I was running a full chemical plant all by myself.
Wow. So what did you know about chemicals and stuff then?
So I started out as environmental health and safety, and I just learned everything as I went through there. And the reason I got the environmental health and safety was my Marine Corps background because I did accounting, but I was also the training NCO. I got you like if you're a hard worker, they'll give you an extra billet, and it's really good for resumes. So I
Mm,
was the training NCO, which you make all the requirements for like the rifle ranges, their vaccines, anything medical related, training related. So I was in charge of the whole unit, which is like 2, 3, 400 people at the time. So that showed that I had the experience to train people and so I started off as EHS with that job, and then I just outworked everyone. Like even though I drank a lot, I've always been a party hard, work harder type of person. Even same thing in the Marine Corps. I did the same thing in my life. I would party till 4 in the morning. I'd wake up, and then I would outwork every single person around me. Like I still have my training jackets from when I was in the military. Like Corporal Perry outworks all of his peers. He sets himself above the standard, and I've done that my whole life. So, like when I went to work, I started at the ground level at this place, and then I became a plant manager within like a year time, year and a half max.
wow. So bring us on a bit then. So you're in charge of this plant. How long did that last?
So I worked that from 2019 until this year. So I finally was able to leave. I would use that money to fund my business. I've been running my business since I was in the Marine Corps. I went to school for fitness, and then I started that in 2016. So I've been doing that. You know, people love to say, "How did you do it so fast?" But it's almost been 10 years now. I don't have to work a corporate job anymore. So I did that for really like from 2019 until like I finally was able to leave that job last month actually, which was a really cool experience to just be able to like, hey, I help people for a living. I'm going to do my own thing.
So what's your own thing nowadays? How are you doing it?
So I do mindset, fitness, and nutrition coaching. And so my background is fitness. I have over 6 certifications in fitness. So I'm considered a master trainer through the school I went through. But I also went to school for project management, Six Sigma Black Belt, Agile Scrum, human resourcing, and financial management. So I combine all that training, all that knowledge, plus my own experience of losing 100 pounds. And I package that into like a really well rounded mindset, fitness and nutrition training. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're just a fitness coach." I don't call myself a fitness coach because if you don't have mindset first, it will never work. I don't care what science books say, I don't care what nutritionists say. None of that works. That's why 90% of diets fail because the mindset. It has to be an internal change first, or you'll never make it happen ever.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did lockdown affect you and your business?
So that's actually, I had the opposite effect. That's actually what blew my business up initially. And that's why I knew that fitness actually paid really good money and helping people because personal development is priceless. If you can teach people to break their vices, it doesn't really matter what you charge because there's people out there that make two, three, $400,000 a year that live paycheck to paycheck because their vices are just destroying them. So if you can show them like, hey, this is what I charge, but this is how much money I can save you. This is the mindset I can develop for you, and this is the body I can get you. People like they'll eat that up because you're fixing their lives at the same time. But with COVID, all the gyms in the area were not allowed to be open. So I created this online program of a home workout, and I posted this female's transformation, her before and after, and it kind of went viral. And that was the first time I realized you could make like thousands of dollars on the internet while I was working my job. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like the type of things that you can do on the internet and the lives you can change and the trajectory of your family's life you can change is like, it's outrageous actually.
Wow. So you got into the online caper. So if you're doing an online video for fitness, how do you set your cameras up to do that?
So I do a lot of hands-free stuff. I have a tripod right now that I have my phone on. Pretty much I'll just set it somewhere that actually has good lighting because you always want to make the video look attractive to people. And then if anybody watches my Instagram or has seen my Instagram, I do the exact same thing every day. I wake up, I do my burpee, I film my supplements, then I do my burpees, I film my breakfast, then I have a reading material. I always have a book beside me. I highlight it, I talk about that book, and then I do my next meal, and then I do my second workout for the day. I film that, and I tell people exactly what the workout is, and then I have some kind of closing statement for the day where I explain my life struggles, and how they can fix theirs. Um, I just use my phone for everything. I don't have any crazy video, like videography camera. You can do a lot of things with a tripod and just some good lighting.
Absolutely. So can I give you a tip?
Yeah.
Don't have breakfast and then do burpees.
Hey, I know. I wake up first and do my and it really burpees aren't really that crazy to like get you muscles or anything like that. People always ask me like if they do burpees, they're going to get in better shape. I do it for the mental aspect and the discipline. Like if you wake up and you do something you don't want to do, your day starts off so much better. You just got to stack daily wins. So I'll wake up, I'll drink a glass of water, and I'll do 100 burpees, just to like
Yeah.
get my mind moving, get my body going, and then like before I before I would head off to work, or now before I start working with clients, I take a cold shower just to wake myself up. I do a lot of things all day long that I don't want to do to build the discipline because I have a very addictive personality. And so I, instead of being addicted to drugs or alcohol, I now force myself to be addicted to entrepreneurship and discipline. So I just do the same thing on a repeated basis every day. Like if people watch my stories every day on Instagram, they probably think I was a psychopath because I don't miss anything. I do the same thing every day on the weekends, no matter what. Like before this podcast, right now it's 5 in the morning here. I've already did my burpees. I got in some steps. I get 30,000 steps a day, and a mile or 10,000 steps of those come from a ruck with a 45-pound pack. I do the same thing every day, and people, my neighbors probably think I'm crazy because they see me pace around my neighborhood a lot.
Now, can I tell you something about um, running with a lot of weight? Don't do it.
No, yeah, it'll
It
ruin your
it
body.
will trash your knee joints, your ankle joints, and your hip joints. Eventually,
Yep.
they will give out. You'll end up see this gorgeous exterior. There's an absolute train wreck going on under it, and that's all
Yeah,
because I'm lugging a lot of weight around. So,
yeah, I walk. I do a really slow pace. I have a bad back. I have two slip discs in my back. I got T-boned when I was in the Marine Corps, and they don't believe you when you go to medical. They think you're just trying to get out of PT. So
yeah,
I went on a 15-mile hike. They made me go on the next day with a 90-pound backpack on my a 15-mile ruck. They made me go on, and I slipped two discs in my back. And then once you mess your back up, the rest of your body's pretty much trash. So I don't have any cartilage in either one of my knees, and I have torn tendons in both of my feet. Um, so I'm in pain all the time. But I don't want to. That's one of the reasons I gained 100 pounds when I was drinking because I used that as an excuse to
yeah,
not want to do anything. But I mean, either way, I realize I'm gonna be in pain. So I would rather be in shape and be in pain than be in pain and not be in shape.
yeah. I can see where you're coming from with that.
Because I mean, it's more painful when you're out of shape and you try to bend down or move, and it's more weight on your back and your knees.
Yeah. So, Carl, if somebody wants to get into your program, how do they go about doing it?
So I run everything through my Instagram. I used to have a business website, but it never really does any conversions, and it just kind of it looks spammy. So like what I do is I just post daily my life on Instagram, and if they need more motivation, they normally reach out, or I'll send out a DM if I notice they react to my story. I'll talk about my pricing really fast just to explain the mindset behind it, so that way they understand before they reach out to me. So for personal development, I'm a mindset, fitness, and nutrition coach. I charge $299 a month or $750 for 3 months. But if they take the program serious, they'll save more money than that. If you look up the average spending of an American, they spend $20 to $30 a day on vices. So DoorDash, fast food, cigarettes, alcohol. So they spend up to $900 a month. Plus, they're like obviously instead of helping their health, they're killing themselves slowly. The number one killer in America right now is heart attack or stroke or things of that nature. So I try to teach people a mindset. And I used to only charge $40 a month, and I used to have the same, oh, well, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, pushback that I do from now. But one thing I realized, the cheaper my plans were, the less serious someone would take it. So if they pay enough money to where they feel like they actually invested into themselves, they hold more value to it. So because if I gave you a free piece of paper with the best knowledge on the world on it, you subconsciously, just because you got it for free, are just going to ball it up and throw it away because you're not going to hold any value to it. So the mindset is built into the pricing as well. And then I have an even more in-depth program for like entrepreneurs or business owners or people that make good money that want to fully invest in the personal development. We have one-on-one calls daily, and I peel their life back like an onion, and I take away all the things that are holding them back from moving on to the next level of entrepreneurship. And I always try to give one of my clients a shout out. His name's Anthony Davis. When he came to me, he paid for my most expensive program for him and his wife, and he went from making $20 an hour working for his grandpa to opening up his own construction business. And within the first month of him opening up his business, he had like a $50,000 job. So personal development can change your whole entire life if you let it, or you can pay money and not take it serious and let it fall to the wayside. I have a mentor that I pay on a 6-month basis that helps me with my business. And people like around here, they're not into personal development. So when I tell them, like, I paid my mentor $12,000 to teach me my business and like how to do my my website and how to do my link tree and how to just pick his brain every month or every week. Like, they don't understand it, but at the end of the day, he changed my entire life because as I was getting sober, he was someone I watched on the internet constantly, and I reached out to him one day. I'm like, "Hey, man, I just want you to know you changed my life." And you helped me get back on the right path because of how extreme you were. I really related to it because of the military, because he was in prison for 10 years. So he's a very extreme person. And he was like, yeah, man, let's help you change other people's lives. Let's get you on the same program let's get them on the same program that changed you, and let's help them evolve into a better person. So I signed up for his business coaching. It completely changed my life for the better. Like, I have his book beside me right now. It's called Non-Negotiable. And 10 years incarcerated created an unbreakable mindset. But so he got his mindset through prison versus the military, but it's the same thing. Like, it's a militant mindset in prison also. So if you can carry those principles with you in life, you can be extremely successful in anything you do. And I think that's exactly why I became a plant manager at such a young age. Just because discipline and personal development, I've always been, even though I was like a troubled youth and I didn't like listening to a lot of people, I would find mentors on the internet and I would just emulate them. Like, that's exactly why I got in trouble too, because but I used to emulate my brother, who is super successful now, but back then was a 2-time felon. So I took like on that gangster appearance and that gangster attitude because I wanted to be like my hero. And I still relate to people like that. Like, I listen to a lot of rap music, and my mentor, he's very aggressive and kind of like people would call him a gangster, but you can be a successful person. And when I was in the military, this guy gave us a speech, and he was like, you got to have game. He was like, you got to have a ghetto attitude in a military environment, and that will make you successful in the rest of your life. And he's like, what I mean by that, most people like grew up in a ghetto, they have a dog eat dog mindset because you have to be fierce and you have to go through everything in life with no fear or you'll never make it. And I've always adopted that mindset, and that's how I've just pushed through life. That's how I was finally able to leave my corporate job. I built an elite mindset to where no matter what, I will not lose. Like, I remember texting my wife like, hey, I'm leaving my job. And like, to leave a job of that stature and the type of money I was making, like, most people would think it's crazy, but if you don't find any purpose in it and you're not happy with it, there's no real reason to be there anymore. And that's the whole reason I gained all my weight from that place, just mentally draining me. Plus I was drinking all the time, celebrating, eating foods. And I'm like, there's no purpose in this life anymore. So I wanted to find something where I could be God's vessel, just help people along through life.
Brilliant. Well, Kyle, thank you very, very much for sharing your story.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're most welcome. Wow, what a great story. If you want to get in touch with Kyle, you'll find all the details down in the description. So until next time, TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
The Tim Heal Podcasts. Ordinary people's extraordinary stories.